Hi, Phil here with Forster's Outdoors, and today we're making walleye spinners. Alright, so as I said in the intro, today we're going to make some walleye spinners. So I've got here a few of my supplies that I use. I'm going to do a little refresher on the knots that we would use for this. So what we're building today is walleye spinners, and they're a very simple rig. I just have a demo one here tied with bright yellow line, which I wouldn't use this bright yellow line for a walleye rig, but it shows up better for demo purposes. So it's really a length of line, and the length can vary depending on the conditions or how you like to fish these rigs. And it has a loop on one end and a snelled hook on the other, and we have some beads, a spinner on a clevis, and sometimes you can tie these if you want to do a worm rig. You can tie them with two hooks on this end. It's a simple thing to do, and it's a good time, you know, in the in-between season to make some of these and get them ready for your tackle box. And then we'll have a quick look at how to store them. This is a tool that lets you tie snell knots, and it helps you tie snell knots on small hooks. I'll show you how to use this tool, and I'll also show you how to do this by hand. And then I also have this tool here which helps tie the loop ends, and we can try that as well. Okay, so we'll get started here. So you take your hook with this tool and you put it in the little slot like so. Tighten down your thumb screw to trap the hook. This move, start with it all the way that way. I'm going to use some clear line here. Basically you go through the eye of the hook, if I can see it, there we go, and stay on this side of the hook. You come around these two posts, cross over in front of the tool. So I'm going to put my hand on this spool here to keep a little bit of tension, and you just roll as many turns as you would like on here. I recommend 6 or so. And when you're done with as many wraps as you want to make, you come under the point of this one here, close it, pull your main line a little bit tight, and it allows your line to come over the top. It doesn't get hooked on that burr, like so. Release your hook. It pulls the line through out the back, and when you tighten up your main line, get a nicely snelled hook, like so. It's a pretty slick little tool. Help you tie your knots. The thing about it is that it keeps them nice and consistent, but snell knots pretty easy to keep consistent. And so then you give yourself some line. I'm going to make this one a little bit short so we can keep it in frame. Okay, you have your snelled hook. And when I do a minnow rig, these are 1/8 diameter beads. You could use whatever beads you want from a fishing store or a craft store. I'll put on 3 of these ones with the size of Colorado blade I'm using, so that my blade isn't running against the knot and it isn't running against my bait. Okay, so I have the hook with some beads on there. Then I have a stirrup clevis. You can use all kinds of different clevises. I happen to have these, lots and lots of these, because I use them for making bucktail spinners. So I just use them on these. They're a little bit big, but they work just fine. So put your clevis through your blade, like so. And then you want to feed this onto the free end of the line, starting from the cup side of the blade. Because if you get your blade backwards, then those are the ones that don't work too good, so you have to give them to your friends. Okay, so you come through your hook, or through your blade, pull it down, and then I like to put on one more bead ahead of the clevis, help protect your clevis, like so. Okay, And then you finish it off with a knot on this end. And again, you can tie just a surgeon's loop, which is not very easy to tie, but not necessarily the strongest. This little tool here kind of helps you tie a modified figure 8. Put the loop end in here. This other loop goes over, and there you have your loop end. Like so. So this one's kind of a short one, but it's for demos. I would probably tie this a minimum of 18 inches or so long, but this is so you can get the idea. You have your blade, your beads, and a loop end and a single hook. So another way to tie that would be, if you're leaving your line on your spool, then it's easy to use one of these tools to tie your hook. If you cut yourself a length of line first, then there's a different way you can snell a hook, and it's easy as well. So you'd come through the eye like so, give yourself a little bit to work with to hang on to, hold it at the back of the hook, then you're going to wrap the main line over the shank of the hook and this line you're holding, and then you're going to take the free end and come back through the eye of your hook. So you're going to wrap 6, 7, 8 times here, like that. And then you need your free end to go back through the eye, like so. Tighten it down. There's your snell. Super easy way to tie a snell if you have a free end. You're not connected to a main line on a rod, or you're not connected to your spool. Okay, so again, same thing. 3 beads. You can put as many or as few as you want on here. This is totally up to you. I just know from experience using these rigs where we fish them that this is a pretty good setup. Like so. And maybe we'll make an orange one this time. Take your blade, get it on your clevis, like so. Take your free end of line, goes through your clevis, like so. Come on now. Like that. Whoops. Ooh, managed to tie a knot in it. Wow, definitely one to give to the friends. Okay, so you get your 3 beads on there, and then go through your swivel, or your clevis rather, go through your clevis, pull it down, take another bead, feed it on there, and again, I like, for the minnow rigs like this, I do 3 beads, and I do it that way because where the sharp edge of your spinner is, it's below where the knot is. So you're not going to worry about the blade running on the knot. And if you're lip hooking your minnow, he's out of the way of the blade. The blade's not going to hit your bait. And then just a matter of putting a loop end on here. You can do your figure 8 loop, like so. Great knot for this. It's a bit of a big loop end, but you get the idea. And there's a minnow rig. I would call this a minnow rig. Now if you want to tie a nightcrawler rig, a lot of times the nightcrawler rig has 2 hooks, and they're usually 3 or 4 inches apart, depending. And I usually use more beads on a nightcrawler rig so that my blade sits up a little bit further, so that when I put the worm on, I can make use of these bait keepers on the shank. So I don't want my blade anywhere onto my hook. I want it above my hook, just so I can make full use of those bait keepers. So when you're doing a double snell, cut yourself a length of line. Okay, and you take your first hook. The last hook on the snell is the first one you got to tie. and you go through, hold it, get your line to cooperate, coil up on your shank of your hook as many turns as you feel you need. It's a little longer line, so you got to find the tag end of it. There it is. And go back through your hook. Okay. There. One snell. I'm just going to cut this tag end off here. Put it in my container. So there's your first hook. So how do we do the second hook? Well, you want it to end up on the line like that. So we're going to have to go through the eye that way. So find your free end. Find your free end and go through your eye. Okay. And then pull that hook down to where you want it in relation to the other hook, 3-4 inches away. You can make yourself a gauge on this so that you get very consistent. I'm just tying this for demonstration, so it's not as important to me. But now you just hold your line like you did the last one. You take your long section and you come around the shank of this hook. Come on now, let's not overlap. Like so. However many times. Hold it all together. Find your free end. Free end goes back through the eye of the hook. Pull it down. Get it up against the eye there. Tighten it. And there you have 2 hooks snelled on one line. Super simple to do. So again, with the worm rig, I would probably put on 4 or 5 beads. Probably 5 in this case. We'll see how it works out. You got to just measure it. You got to just measure it until you're happy with where your spinner lines up. Like so. Okay, take your clevis, take a blade, get your free end, go through from the cup side of your blade, try and use your eyes to find the hole in the clevis. Pull it down and let's see what that does for us. That's 5 beads. I'd probably put one more on there, 6, just to get that blade up so it's not hitting the snelled line on the end of the hook. And then it's out of the way of your bait keepers as well. Alright, so there's 6 beads on that. There you go. Yeah, I like that better. Yeah, so it's going to ride in between those beads there on a worm rig. That's more or less what I'm looking for. I like that better. That blade is going to ride well up from the hook, so I can make full use of the bait keepers, and there's no risk of that blade contacting your knot or contacting the line on the shank of the hook, because if it just has to run a little bit on there and you can start to compromise your line, you don't want that. And then the other end here, of course, you tie either the figure 8 or you use your little loop tool. Why no? You tie your figure 8 or you use your little loop tool. Loop tire. There you have your end. You get a lot better at tying these things without as much waste when you're using fluorocarbon because it's more expensive than monofilament. So you won't be cutting off massive tag ends. once you start paying for fluorocarbon. Fluorocarbon, probably better. It's less visible in the water. It's more durable. Where I'm fishing these rigs, the water's pretty stained, so I'm not too worried about the visibility of fluorocarbon versus mono. And I happen to have this spool of 20-pound mono here, and it works just fine. So that's what I'm using for this. I would tie up a little heavier fluorocarbon. There's one spot that I do troll for walleyes where you catch pike occasionally, and so if you use fluorocarbon, you're not going to lose as much equipment. But for what I'm doing, where these are going to go in the spring, this is going to work just fine. A method to store your rigs, one would be, you know, take your rig, roll it up, go through your rig a few times here like so, you know, tie it up so you got it nicely looped, and it can sit in your tackle box just like that. That's one way. You know, if you get a whole pile of them loose together, you know, if you put these in a tray or something, put like 3 at a time in a tray, then you're only untangling 3 of them. You're not untangling all of them. It works pretty good to loop them like that. You can put a couple 3 in a Ziploc bag, and then you have them all nicely contained. That's a good way to store them. Another way to deal with it is to get these things. These looks like one's come loose here, but you can see that. You can get these, do one for each color when you're tying them up. These I got at Cabela's, and nobody's sponsoring this, but there is a brand name on here. The bag just says Cabela's, but there is a brand name on here that says Hagen's from Mitchell, South Dakota. These things are really quite awesome. I like these. They fit perfectly in a tackle tray. You can usually get a couple deep in a tackle tray. So I have one box that's pretty much dedicated to spinners like this, where I have, you know, a bunch stacked for minnows, and then I have worm rigs. And these things are just awesome. They keep them from being tangled. These things are so inexpensive compared to how many you get in a bag and how well they organize your gear. I say do this. At the minimum, do that. So again, that's how you tie your rigs. You can tie up a double worm rig, really easy. And then your typical, you can also tie up your typical minnow spinners. Really easy to do. Really easy to do. Now, making these things yourselves, I can't say that you're going to save any money doing it. I kind of joke about making fishing lures, is why would you buy one for $10 when you can make your own for $15? But this way you can make them exactly how you want them to work, exactly how you need them to work. With the exact size blade you want, the line you want, the type of hook you want, totally custom. Because you know where you're fishing, what's going to work for you. So give this a try, make up a bunch in the winter, get ready for your spring, summer season. If you have any comments, please leave them below. Until our next video, thanks for watching.